In the commercials, they say that it's the most wonderful time of year. Well, kids going back to school, of course, but some parents have serious empty nester syndrome. Let's ask our guest and good friend of Fox 24 News Now, Dr. Janae Bishop Nesbitt, educational productivity consultant and coach, how to best cope with empty nester syndrome.
Goodness.
So they say it's the most wonderful time of year. All the kids going back to school. Now you have the house to yourself, but then it starts to set in and you get lonely. So what causes that?
Oh my goodness. Well, you know, the Mayo Clinic had published an article about the empty nest syndrome, which basically is that parents feel like they have a different sense of purpose. Sometimes they feel distressed and depressed because now they've gone from having a house that has been active to now the empty nest. And so oftentimes they have to revisit, what is my purpose now that the kids are gone? But like you said earlier, it's an exciting time. You can now revisit and renew who you are as a person, as a parent, and as an adult in this new chapter of life.
I can imagine, you know, when you're used to a house just all a buzz, and then all of a sudden it's crickets.
Yes.
And then you're just sitting there thinking, okay, what am I supposed to be doing with myself now?
That's right.
What should you do maybe leading up to that point? Because, you know, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks, but
Absolutely.
maybe you can prepare.
Oh, I love that. And so something that I created was called the Nester. And all of those letters really gives people some tips in terms of how they can handle it. Because the key thing is when we are prepared, then we can handle the situation a little bit more better. So the N stands for never lose touch with your children. So begin to open up that conversation about any anxieties that they may have as they about to depart. Because the same way we feel anxious, they are too. For many of them, this is their first time living away from home. The E in Nester is to be able to embrace this new chapter in your life. And that could be scary, but it's exciting. You know, if you're taking care of yourself and embracing self-care, this new chapter can open up new hobbies and activities. The next one is S in Nester. Set new goals for yourself. Because life is about learning. We don't stop learning until, you know, we're called home, of course. But it's important for us to set new goals and be excited. Then the T in Nester is to talk to the other empty nesters. You're not the first one to go through this. Then the E is engage in volunteering and community service. Don't wait until you retire. Start to do that now. And then finally, remember to focus on the positive aspects. I couldn't help but to laugh inside when you said, oh, it should be exciting. And the kids are wondering, why are you so excited that we're leaving?
I know. Well, I can imagine for kids, especially going to college, because then they're really truly away from the house.
Absolutely.
But to keep those lines of communication open, but to maybe even for the first year before they leave the house, to start thinking about, well, what am I interested in? What are some of the books that I wanted to catch up on reading?
That is so fantastic.
And self-care too, you say.
It really is. You know, there are 8 dimensions of self-care that the National Wellness talks about in having a holistic life. And those 8 dimensions are spiritual, physical, emotional, our environment. You know, some kids, when they go off to school, they come back and their room has been turned into a gym. So for
that is true.
So for that parent, that environmental wellness is so key. Then there's social wellness, which deals with our personal and our professional relationships. Reach out to old friends, reach out to professional networks and start that new chapter. There's intellectual wellness. Go to the library, read some books, really pour into yourself now. And then there's financial wellness, which is a big struggle for parents who have kids going off to college because it impacts the family in the finances. But going back to social wellness, what we have found in the research too is that there are struggles in your own personal relationships. You know, you and your partner may have revolved around the kids, and now it's an empty nest and you're wondering, wow, this is a stranger. So you have to regain that intimacy as well.
Are there any, whether it's subconscious or conscious, unhealthy characteristics that you might be exhibiting as someone who is maybe an impending empty nester? Or are there some manipulations that parents do to maybe not feel that loss when their kids leave the house?
Well, crying all the time is a good indicator.
That is a sign,
Yes, and so, you know, there are psychologists and coaches and helpers out there to help you during this period of transition, because it is scary. And especially when you take into account a parent who might have been a stay-at-home parent. For the last 18 years, their focus and their job, for the most part, has been these children, and now they're leaving and having to establish a new purpose in their life. So I would certainly encourage individuals to reach out for some counseling, therapy, to prepare for this transition. The other thing to consider is what happens when the kid comes back. You know, so being able to have, I encourage folks folks to have what I call like an exit interview when the
Yeah.
kids are about to leave and
that's a good
talk
one.
about what their feelings are, and when they come back, how things will be different. I know for me, when my sons came back from college, I had to let them know at college you may not have had a curfew, but here there is a curfew.
The rules change when you're back under mom's roof.
Absolutely.
Well, and also I think maybe sort of easing into that independence maybe for that
Yes.
year before they leave too, just to kind of
Yes.
get, for everyone to get used to it. Dr. Janae, you always have wonderful advice. Thank you so much
Oh,
for joining
thank
us
you.
today.
Blessings
Crazy.
to you.
And this wasn't planned. This was telepathically
I know.
designed. We'll be back after this.